This story is titled, My Wife's Family Made Me Take Out a Second Mortgage to Pay for Her Sister's Wedding, and Now They Want Me to Sell Our House because she's getting divorced so she can start over. But I told them I had had enough, and now I'm being called the bad guy. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hi Reddit, I'm a 31-year-old guy from Texas, and I need to get something off my chest. My wife, Lisa, 30 female, and I have been together for 7 years, married for 4. I thought I'd married someone who was on the same page as me about life and priorities. Turns out her family has a way of throwing everything off course. Let me start from the beginning. Lisa and I met in college when I was 25, finishing up my degree in IT, and she was 23, studying education. She was smart, beautiful, and seemed like the kind of person who had her head on straight. We clicked immediately and started dating a few months after meeting in a shared elective class. At first, everything seemed normal. Lisa came from a close-knit family. Her mom and dad lived about an hour away from campus, and she had a younger sister, Katie, 26 now, who was in her last year of high school. But it didn't take long to notice that Katie was the favorite. Her parents doted on her like she was royalty. If she wanted something, it magically happened. Missed a homework deadline? They'd call her teacher. Needed a new car? They got her a shiny new convertible for her 18th birthday, while Lisa was still driving a hand-me-down Honda from her grandma. Lisa used to roll her eyes about it, telling me that Katie was the baby and that her parents had always been soft on her. I didn't think much of it at the time. Every family has their quirks, right? I figured it wasn't my business and shrugged it off. Fast forward a few years. Lisa and I got married in a small, low-key ceremony. We didn't see the point in blowing a ton of money on a wedding when we wanted to save for a house in our future. I thought this was something we both valued, building a life together, working hard, and being smart with money. We were living a simple but happy life, or so I thought. Then Katie dropped the news. She was getting engaged to her boyfriend, Josh. They'd been together for about a year, and Katie was already in full bridezilla mode. From the moment she announced it, every conversation with Lisa's family revolved around the wedding. Katie wanted a destination wedding in Cancun, complete with beachfront views, 5-star catering, and extravagant decorations. It was like a Pinterest wedding board come to life. The problem? Katie and Josh couldn't afford it. Her parents? Also broke. Katie's mom had just retired, and her dad was juggling medical bills after an accident the year before. I could already see where this was going, but I tried to stay optimistic. Maybe they'd scale back their expectations, right? Nope. A few weeks later, Lisa sat me down and said her parents had suggested that we help out with Katie's wedding. I wasn't thrilled, but I heard her out. She told me Katie was stressed. The family wanted to make her dream wedding happen, and her parents didn't want her to feel like her financial situation was holding her back. I knew help out meant money, but I wasn't about to throw my hard-earned savings into this circus without boundaries. So I made one thing very clear. If I'm going to contribute, there would be a legally binding agreement. Katie, her parents, and even Josh would need to sign off, agreeing to repay me every cent. Lisa hesitated at first, saying it was a little extreme, but I stood my ground. I told her, if we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, I'm not risking our future on a handshake deal. After some back and forth, Lisa agreed. I had a lawyer draft a contract, and after a lot of awkward conversations, Katie and her parents signed it. We agreed to contribute $40,000, which was supposed to be repaid in monthly installments starting 6 months after the wedding. The agreement was rock solid. If they missed payments, there were penalties. It wasn't my first time dealing with money like this, and I wasn't about to let anyone take advantage of us. The wedding itself? It was as over the top as I expected. Katie spared no expense. There were fireworks on the beach, custom floral arrangements imported from God knows where, and some kind of choreographed dance routine with a live band. Lisa was glowing the entire time, saying how proud she was to see Katie so happy. Meanwhile, I kept my mouth shut and watched $40,000 get flushed down the drain. I'll admit, the whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't just the expense, it was the entitlement. Katie's friends were bragging about how perfect everything was, while her parents acted like they'd pulled off a miracle. And let's not even talk about Josh. The guy barely said 2 words to me the whole weekend, and I got the distinct impression he wasn't as invested in this marriage as Katie was. But hey, not my circus, not my monkeys. After the wedding, I started to feel more at ease. The agreement was signed, the wedding was over, and Katie was supposed to start repaying us in a few months. I figured we could get back to focusing on our own goals, saving for a bigger house, maybe starting a family. I thought I'd dodged a bullet by setting boundaries. But Reddit, I underestimated how far this family would go to milk every resource they could. At the time, I was patting myself on the back for sticking to my guns with the repayment contract. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of their entitlement and the chaos it would bring into my life. It started small. Katie and Josh came back from their honeymoon acting like life was one big Instagram reel. They were posting every day, fancy brunches, trips, and spa days. Meanwhile, I was sitting there thinking, how the hell are they paying for all this? Because we all knew Katie didn't have a job lined up after the wedding. At first, I let it slide. They had 6 months before the repayments were supposed to start, and I wasn't going to nitpick how they spent their time. But as the deadline approached, I started getting nervous. Katie still wasn't working, and Josh was in some vague startup job that never seemed to go anywhere. Every time I casually brought it up with Lisa, she'd brush it off. "They'll figure it out," she'd say. When the 6 months were up, I sent Katie and her parents a reminder about the first payment. Nothing aggressive, just a polite email attaching the agreement. A week went by. Nothing. 2 weeks. Still nothing. Finally, Katie responded with some excuse about how she was actively looking for work and just needed a little more time. Okay, fine. I wasn't going to be a jerk about it. I told her I'd give her another month, but reminded her that the contract had penalties for late payments. She agreed, promised she'd get things sorted, and I decided to let it go. But a month came and went. No payment. I brought it up with Lisa again, and this time she got defensive. "Katie's going through a tough time," she said. Like I didn't already know that. "Maybe we can just give her a little more grace." "Grace?" I asked. "She's out here brunching and posting beach pics while I'm at work every day trying to keep us afloat. I'm not asking for a kidney. I'm asking for the money we're owed." Lisa just gave me that look, the one that says she's tired of having the same conversation. But I was tired too. This wasn't pocket change we were talking about. It was $40,000. The excuses kept piling up. Katie was between jobs. Their parents were helping with other expenses. Josh was working on something big. It was always something. Meanwhile, every time I checked social media, there they were. Another vacation, another fancy dinner, another new outfit for Katie. I hit my breaking point at a family dinner. Lisa's parents had invited us over, and I decided I wasn't going to tiptoe around the issue anymore. After we finished eating, I brought up the repayment schedule. "Hey, Katie," I said as calmly as I could. "It's been a few months since your first payment was due. Can we talk about getting that back on track?" You'd have thought I insulted her entire existence. She immediately started tearing up, saying how stressed she was, how hard things had been since the wedding, and how pressured she felt. Lisa's mom jumped in, glaring at me like I'd kicked a puppy. "Can't you see she's going through enough already? She doesn't need this added stress." And her dad? He piled on too. "This is family. You don't nickel and dime family, especially when they're struggling." I couldn't believe it. I sat there looking at a table full of people who acted like I was the villain for expecting them to honor their own agreement. "This isn't nickel and diming," I said. "This is $40,000. That's not family help. That's a life-changing amount of money for most people, and I'm just asking you to stick to the terms you all agreed to." Katie cried harder. Lisa's mom patted her back, glaring at me again. "You're being so cold about this," she said. "Katie just needs time." I wasn't having it. Time for what? She's been to 3 vacations in the last 6 months, but she can't manage one payment? That's when Lisa decided to jump in. "This isn't helping anyone, babe," she said. "Maybe we can just give them a little more time to get on their feet." "No, Lisa," I snapped. "We've already given them time. If they needed more, they could have asked before the deadline, not just ghosted us. And what about us? When do we get to focus on our future instead of funding theirs?" The room went dead silent. Everyone just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Lisa looked embarrassed, like I'd just ruined Thanksgiving or something. I stood my ground. "I'm not trying to make life harder for anyone," I said. "But this is about respect. We trusted you to repay us, and now it feels like you're taking advantage of us instead." The rest of the dinner was awkward, to say the least. Lisa barely said 2 words to me on the drive home, and I could feel the tension in the air. When we got back, she finally spoke up. "Do you have to be so harsh?" she asked. "Harsh?" I said, stunned. "Lisa, this is $40,000. I don't think asking for a straight answer about repayment is harsh. What's harsh is your family acting like I'm the bad guy for expecting them to keep their word." She sighed and said something about how family dynamics are complicated, but I wasn't having it. No, Lisa, this isn't complicated. It's black and white. They agreed to pay us back, and now they're stalling. The conversation didn't go anywhere, and I went to bed frustrated. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to end well. I wasn't about to let Katie and her parents walk all over me, but it was clear they had no intention of holding up their end of the deal. The worst part? Lisa didn't seem to see the problem. She was so wrapped up in her family's drama that she couldn't, or wouldn't, acknowledge how unfair this was to me. I started keeping a mental clock in my head. If they didn't start paying soon, I was going to take action. I didn't know what that would look like yet, but I wasn't going to sit around and let them bleed us dry. In about 18 months after the big Cancun blowout, and Katie still hadn't paid me back, Lisa got a call from Katie one night. I could hear the sobbing from across the room. Turns out Josh was caught cheating. Not just a one-time thing either. He'd been hooking up with someone from work for months. Katie found out when she saw some texts pop up on his phone during dinner. Classic. Within days, it was over. Katie moved back in with her parents, and Josh? He ghosted the family entirely. Honestly, I wasn't shocked. I never thought Josh was all that great to begin with, but of course, nobody wanted to hear my opinion back then. At first, I thought the divorce was Katie's problem to deal with. After all, she was the one who'd insisted on a $40,000 wedding she couldn't afford. I figured she'd lick her wounds, maybe get a job for once, and move on with her life. Boy, was I naive. A few weeks after the split, Lisa's parents invited us over for a family meeting. Let me just say, when you get invited to one of those, nothing good is coming. I should have made an excuse to skip it, but I was curious, and I guess a small part of me hoped they'd finally address the unpaid wedding debt. Nope. The second I walked in, I could tell something was up. Lisa's mom was overly sweet, offering me coffee and snacks like I was a guest of honor. Katie was sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket, dabbing at her eyes with tissues. Her dad was pacing the room like he was gearing up for some kind of big speech. After a few minutes of awkward small talk, Lisa's mom finally got to the point. So, as you know, Katie's been going through a really difficult time, she started, and we've been brainstorming ways to help her get back on her feet. I swear my stomach sank right then and there. She kept going, listing out all these grand ideas for Katie's fresh start. A new apartment, a reliable car, some cash to cover her bills until she could stabilize. And guess who they thought should foot the bill? Yeah, Mr. I actually laughed. Out loud. I couldn't help it. You're kidding, right? I asked. You want us to pay for all of that? When Katie still hasn't paid back the $40,000 we loaned for her wedding? You'd think I'd suggested kicking a puppy the way they all looked at me. Lisa's mom gave me this tight smile and said, "This is different. Katie's in a really vulnerable place right now. She needs her family's support." I was done. Support? You mean money? I already gave $40,000 of support, and I'm still waiting to see a dime of it back. So no, absolutely not. That's when Lisa decided to jump in. "We can afford to help," she said, her voice all defensive. "Katie's going through so much, and it's not like we're struggling." I couldn't believe it. "If you think we can afford it, Lisa, then why don't you write her a check?" "Oh wait, you don't have any money." That shut her up for a second. But then her mom chimed back in, talking about how family is supposed to be there for each other during hard times. Her dad gave me this whole speech about how he's sacrificed everything for his daughters and how he thought I'd do the same. I stood my ground. I've already sacrificed plenty, and I'm done. Katie's a grown adult. She made choices, and now she can deal with the consequences. Katie, of course, started crying. "I didn't ask for this," she wailed, like she wasn't the one who insisted on a destination wedding and a husband who couldn't stay faithful for 18 months. The whole thing turned into a circus. Lisa kept trying to mediate, telling me I was too harsh and that we should compromise. Her parents threw every guilt trip in the book at me, talking about how they'd do it for me if the roles were reversed. Yeah, right. By the time we left, I was furious. Lisa barely spoke to me on the drive home. When we got back, she finally broke the silence. "Why can't you just be more understanding?" she asked. "Understanding?" I said, almost laughing again. "Lisa, I've been understanding. I've been patient. But enough is enough. Your family thinks I'm some kind of ATM, and I'm not playing that game anymore." We didn't get anywhere that night. Lisa went to bed angry, and I stayed up wondering how the hell I got myself into this mess. And the thing is, I wasn't asking for anything unreasonable. All I wanted was for them to honor their agreement. If Katie had come to me with a genuine plan to repay the wedding debt, maybe I'd have been more open to helping her now. But instead, they acted like that $40,000 was monopoly money and then had the audacity to ask for more. So, a week after the whole family meeting disaster, I thought the drama had finally cooled off. I'd made my stance clear. No more handouts for Katie. Simple, right? Wrong. Lisa came home one night, her eyes red and puffy, like she'd been crying. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone when she dropped the bomb. My parents think you're being unfair, she said, sniffling. I set my phone down and sighed. Unfair how? Because I won't drain our bank account for your sister's mess? That's when she hit me with it. They think we should sell the house and use the equity to help Katie get back on her feet. I swear, I thought I misheard her. Sell our house? I said, just to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. She nodded and I just stared at her. Are you insane? Now your solution is to hand her even more? Number absolutely not. But Lisa wasn't backing down. Katie's our family, she said, like that was some kind of trump card. She's going through so much right now. And it's not like we can't make it work. We could rent or downsize for a while. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just a bad idea. It was delusional. Lisa, this isn't about making it work, I said, trying to keep my cool. This is about boundaries. Katie's problems aren't our responsibility. We already helped her once, and look where that got us. Selling the house isn't helping. It's enabling. But Lisa didn't see it that way. You're being selfish, she shot back. She's my sister. If the roles were reversed, I'd expect her to help me. I laughed bitterly. Would you? Because I sure wouldn't. And even if you would, it doesn't matter. Katie's not my family, Lisa. And if you keep putting their needs above ours, I'm not sure you are either. Yeah, I said it. And no, I don't regret it. The next morning, Lisa was cold but civil. She didn't say much beyond the usual good morning and I'll see you later as she headed out for work. I figured she needed some time to cool off, and honestly, I didn't mind the space. But that didn't last long. A few days later, I came home from work to find Lisa sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers in front of her. We need to talk, she said. I sat down, already bracing myself. What now? She slid the papers across the table. They were house listings, smaller places, fixer-uppers, and rentals. These are some options if we decide to sell, she said, like it was a totally normal conversation to be having. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Lisa, I already told you I'm not selling the house. Why are we still talking about this? She sighed, like she was the one getting frustrated. Because this is important. Katie needs us. My parents think... I cut her off. I don't care what your parents think. This is our house, Lisa. Not theirs, not Katie's. Ours. And I'm not giving it up because your family can't get their act together. But they're my family, she said, her voice trembling. They've always been there for me. Why can't you understand that? I leaned back in my chair, trying to keep my temper in check. Lisa, I get that they're your family. But you know what? You married me. We're supposed to be building a life together, not sacrificing everything we've worked for to clean up their messes. At some point, you have to draw a line. She didn't have a response to that. Instead, she just stared at the papers, tears welling up in her eyes again. I don't know what to do, she finally said. I sighed. I do. We focus on us, on our future. And if that means saying no to your family sometimes, then so be it. That's what boundaries are for. Lisa didn't say much after that. She just nodded, gathered up the papers, and went to bed early. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was starting to see my side of things. But nope. Look, Reddit, I get that family is important. But at what point do you stop letting them dictate your life? Lisa's parents had this warped idea of what helping meant, and it was ruining our marriage. And Lisa? She was so caught up in their guilt trips that she couldn't see what it was doing to us. If I thought things couldn't get worse after the whole sell the house nonsense, I was wrong. Way wrong. Let me tell you about the day I realized just how deep Lisa's loyalty to her family went, and how far I was willing to go to protect myself. So picture this. I'm at work, just having a normal day, when I get a notification from my bank about a large withdrawal from our joint account. $7,000. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. I mean, why the hell would we need to move that much money all at once? I called Lisa right away. She didn't pick up, which wasn't totally unusual, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I checked the account details and saw the transfer had gone straight to Katie. My stomach dropped. When I got home, Lisa was sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone like everything was normal. I walked in and cut straight to the point. What's this $7,000 transfer to Katie? I asked. Lisa barely looked up. She needed it, she said, like it was the most casual thing in the world. She needed it, I repeated, trying to stay calm. And you didn't think you should talk to me first? Lisa finally put her phone down and gave me this annoyed look, like I was the one being unreasonable. I knew you'd say no, she said. I couldn't believe it. Of course I'd say no, because it's not her money, Lisa. It's our money. What the hell were you thinking? She rolled her eyes, which made me even angrier. It's not a big deal, she said. She needed help. She'll pay it back. Are you serious right now? I said. Lisa shrugged, like the whole thing wasn't worth arguing about. You're overreacting, she said. It's just money. That was it. I was done. Just money? Lisa, this isn't about the money. It's about trust. You went behind my back and gave Katie $7,000 without even telling me. How am I supposed to trust you after this? Lisa didn't have an answer. Instead, she tried to turn it around on me. You're always so controlling about money, she said. It's like you care more about your bank account than my family. That hit a nerve. You know what, Lisa? If protecting what's mine makes me controlling, so be it. I'm not going to let you or your family bleed me dry for Katie's mess. She looked stunned for a second, but then she got defensive again. Katie's my sister, she said. And what about me? I shot back. Do I not matter in this equation? Because it sure as hell feels like I don't. The argument went in circles for a while, but nothing got resolved. Lisa refused to admit she was wrong, and I refused to back down. By the end of the night, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this happen again. The next morning, I went straight to the bank. I froze our joint account, opened a new one in my name only, and moved my direct deposit over. I didn't want to leave Lisa stranded, so I left enough in the joint account to cover our regular bills, but that was it. The rest was mine. When Lisa found out, she lost it. You froze the account, she yelled. Yeah, I did, I said, because I can't trust you not to raid it for Katie. She called me controlling again, saying I was treating her like a child. This isn't a partnership, she said. You're acting like you're the boss of everything. I didn't even argue with her. You made this choice, Lisa, not me. That's not a partnership. That's betrayal. She stormed off after that, muttering something about how I'd never understand what family means. The thing is, I do understand what family means. I understand that it's about love, support, and respect. But Lisa's version of family? It's about guilt trips, entitlement, and sacrificing everything for people who don't give a damn about you. After freezing the account, I started looking into my legal options. I didn't want to go nuclear just yet, but I needed to know what my rights were if things kept escalating. I reached out to a lawyer, explained the situation, and started documenting everything. Every transfer, every argument, every conversation. I also made a point to separate my finances completely. I got a new credit card, canceled the ones we shared, and changed the passwords on all my online accounts. It felt drastic, but I didn't see any other choice. Lisa, of course, was furious. She accused me of shutting her out and treating her like she was the enemy. This isn't how a marriage is supposed to work, she said. You're right, I told her. A marriage is supposed to be built on trust and respect. And right now, we don't have either of those things. She didn't like that answer, but it was the truth. The hardest part in all of this was realizing how far apart we'd drifted. The Lisa I married, the one who cared about building a future together, was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized, someone who prioritized her family's needs over ours every single time. At that point, I knew we were at a crossroads. Either Lisa was going to wake up and start putting our marriage first, or we were headed for the end. Okay. After that, every conversation turned into an argument. It didn't matter what we were talking about, bills, dinner, the weather. It all came back to Katie and how I was ruining the family. It was exhausting. I knew something had to give. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly on edge, wondering what new way Lisa's family would try to bleed me dry. I thought maybe she'd eventually realize how much damage her loyalty to them was doing, but every time I brought it up, she doubled down. One night, after yet another fight, I sat down and really thought about what I wanted. Did I see a future with Lisa? Could I trust her again? Would I ever stop feeling like an ATM for her family? The answers were all pretty clear. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I called my lawyer, went over the details, and filed for divorce. When the papers were ready, I handed them to Lisa myself. I didn't want to blindside her with a process server or anything. As soon as she saw the envelope, her face fell. What's this? She asked, even though I think she already knew. Divorce papers, I said. It's over, Lisa. She opened the envelope and stared at the papers, her hands shaking. Then came the screaming. You can't be serious. she yelled. You're really going to throw away our marriage over this? This isn't just about Katie or your family, I said. It's about trust, respect, and priorities. And you've shown me over and over that I'll always come second to them. I can't do it anymore. She started crying, begging me to reconsider. We can fix this, she said. I'll talk to my parents. I'll set boundaries. Just don't do this. But it was too late. I'd heard it all before. Empty promises to change, to put us first. I've given you so many chances, Lisa, I said. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine. The fallout was brutal. Katie and her parents wasted no time turning on me. They called me every name in the book. Selfish, heartless, controlling. Katie even had the nerve to text me saying, "You're ruining Lisa's life because you can't handle being part of a real family." A real family. Yeah, okay, Katie. Lisa packed up her things and moved in with her parents, which honestly was a relief. The house felt so much lighter without her constant guilt trips and passive-aggressive comments. I stayed put, keeping all the documentation about the wedding loan and the unauthorized withdrawals. My lawyer assured me I was in a strong position, especially with all the evidence I had. Katie and her parents didn't make things any easier. They kept trying to drag mutual friends and family into the drama, spinning this narrative about how I was abandoning Lisa and breaking up the family. A few people bought into it and started sending me messages, asking how I could be so cruel. But most people? They knew what was up. My parents, especially, were rock solid. My mom told Katie off when she called trying to guilt trip her, and my dad made it clear he wasn't going to let anyone bully me into caving. Even some of Lisa's extended family reached out to say they understood where I was coming from, though they couldn't say it publicly without risking backlash from her parents. The funniest part? Lisa's family tried to guilt me into letting her take the house. She deserves a stable place to live, her mom said in one of her many, many voicemails. Yeah, no. My lawyer shut that down fast. The house was in my name, and with all the evidence I had about the unauthorized transfers, they didn't have a leg to stand on. The divorce isn't finalized yet, but my lawyer's confident it'll go smoothly. I'm holding on to the house, and I've got all the documentation to prove how much Lisa and her family tried to take advantage of me. I wish I'd seen the red flags earlier. Lisa's family was always a little too involved in our lives, but I kept brushing it off, thinking it was just their dynamic. I didn't realize how toxic it was until it was too late. So, that's where I'm at, Reddit. It's been a wild ride, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm finally in control of my life. If you've ever had to deal with toxic in-laws or a partner who couldn't set boundaries, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Because let me tell you, this has been one hell of a learning experience. Thanks for sticking with me through all this. You guys have been a lifeline. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while. I wasn't going to update, but I noticed many of you asking what happened, and if I got the $40,000 back or what. So here's what happened. First off, the divorce got finalized a couple of months ago, and it went heavily in my favor. My lawyer was a beast. He made sure every little thing Lisa and her family tried to pull, unauthorized withdrawals, the wedding loan, the attempted guilt trip to sell the house, was documented and used to back me up. Lisa's team tried to argue that the wedding money was a gift, but we had that signed agreement. Ironclad. They didn't stand a chance. By the time it was all said and done, not only did I keep the house, but I also got the $40,000 back. Yep, Katie and her parents were forced to cough up every last cent. The court ordered them to repay the full amount with interest, and because they dragged things out, they ended up owing me closer to $45,000. Honestly, watching Lisa's mom's face when that ruling came down was worth every sleepless night I'd had over this mess. At first, they tried to play the victim, saying they didn't have the money. But surprise, surprise, they somehow managed to scrape it together when the court started talking about wage garnishment. Funny how that works. Once the money hit my account, it felt like the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. That $40,000 wasn't just cash. It was closure. With the house officially mine, thanks to the prenup, and my finances back in order, I got to work rebuilding. The first thing I did was turn the guest room, the one Lisa always wanted to turn into a Katie recovery suite, into a home gym. Every time I walk in there now, I feel like I'm reclaiming a little bit more of what I lost in that marriage. Of course, Katie and her parents didn't take the court ruling gracefully. They tried to spin it like I was some villain who'd destroyed Lisa's life and stolen from the family. Katie even posted some passive-aggressive crap on Facebook about how some people prioritize money over relationships. But I just ignored it. Let them talk. At the end of the day, I've got the house, the money, and my peace of mind. Lisa reached out a couple of times after the divorce was finalized. The first time was to apologize, not for what she did, but for how things ended up. Classic Lisa, still refusing to take responsibility. She said she missed me and wished we could have worked things out. I told her straight up, we could have worked things out if you'd chosen me, but you didn't. And now this is where we are. I hung up after that and blocked her number. Speaking of blocking, I did a major digital detox after the divorce. I unfriended and blocked pretty much everyone from Lisa's family and anyone who bought into their drama. I've learned a lot from this whole ordeal. The biggest lesson? Boundaries. If someone can't respect your boundaries, they don't respect you. It's that simple. So, yeah, Reddit. I guess this is my happy ending. It took a lot to get here. More stress, heartbreak, and legal fees than I ever thought I'd deal with. But it was worth it. I've got my house, my money, and my life back. And most importantly, I've got my self-respect. If you're ever in a situation like mine, remember this. You don't owe anyone your peace, your money, or your future just because they're family. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. And trust me, it feels damn good on the other side. Thanks for sticking with me through all this. You guys have been a lifeline, and I can't tell you how much I've appreciated the advice and support. Here's to moving forward.